Join me as we prepare two vegan pie desserts, apple pie and butternut squash pie. Absolutely no dairy and the crust is flaky and delicious. For the butter, we're using avocado oil 8 ounce. Remember, we're making for 2 pies, so individually it will be 4 ounce. So we're going to pour into a container to put it in the freezer for an hour, and we will check it in between. At 25 minutes in the freezer, this is the texture. We want it thicker than this. It's almost there. Let's keep it in the freezer for a little while. This is the full hour it has been in the refrigerator, and this texture is perfect. We want to keep it this way even if we have to keep taking it in and out of the freezer. For our apple pie filling, you will need 15 or 20 ounces of apples or 5 small apples. You can choose whether you want your apples in chunks or if you prefer to cut them how I am slicing them. Using a grater, we will be adding some grated ginger to our filling. I didn't know what I was thinking, but listen, that gave the apple pie a perfect, wonderful flavor. Adding 5 ounces of water. When it comes to boil, we will add our apples. Mix a little and then add 1 tablespoon of grated ginger, and 6 tablespoons of agave sweetener. Mix together and let simmer for 10 minutes. When it is finished, if no water is in it, very good, but we still need to strain just to make sure. I actually drank that juice, it was really good. After it's strained, we're going to set aside so we can prepare our squash filling. Food prep tip of the day. So rather than letting your squash get old in the refrigerator, this was a piece I literally had for 2 weeks, but I put it in a bowl just like that with some water and it actually did not rotten. And this was enough for my squash pie, so we're just cutting them up into chunks. Adding 1 cup of water and 0.960 pounds of squash. When it comes to boil, we're going to add the squash to the pot. Please add 1 tablespoon of grated ginger and 2 cloves immediately. I thought about it after, but I forgot to mention. So we're going to let it boil for 10 minutes on medium heat. Once the fork goes through, it's ready to puree. Please remove the cloves before pureeing. It was only to add flavor. So we're going to add 2 ounces of coconut milk and 5 tablespoons of agave sweetener. Blend until smooth. If you have a hand immersion blender, you can blend from the pot instead of using a food processor. Nice and smooth, let's make our dough crust. For our crust, add in 0.680 pounds of spelt flour, 2 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. Mix together. Remember, we're making 2 pies, so if you're making 1, then just divide the recipe into 2. Using our frozen avocado oil butter, add to bowl immediately along with 12 tablespoons of cold water. Using our pastry blender, blend in all ingredients as we're expecting a crumbly dough. I didn't skip this part so you can thoroughly see how to make it. This recipe requires skill. If you feel stuck, just use a metal spoon to help combine. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. As we can see, it's coming together. Once all the flour is combined in the dough, you can use a spoon to scrape the sides. And as we can see here, it's not hard at all. Before we massage our crust, let's oil our pan to have them ready. Adding a half tablespoon per pan. Using a pastry brush to evenly spread. Let's get back to kneading. Just add a little flour, not much, onto the surface. And then we're going to pour all that crumbly dough on the surface, and then we're going to pick up all the pieces to combine together. Of course, it needed a little bit of extra care, some patting and forming rather than more kneading. So all I'm doing, as you can see, is massaging the dough, preventing breakage at the same time. Cut into 4 even pieces. Whilst we form and roll out one, let us put the other 3 in the freezer just to keep it cool. Now, it didn't melt or anything, but that's what I decided to do since the dough deserves special care. I was a bit afraid thinking the dough would have fallen apart, but it actually could have used a rolling pin. So this way still worked, but I prefer to use the rolling pin. Remember, this is my first time making this recipe, so I was curious, even though it came out really good. Using our cooled pie filling, we're going to add the apple to the pie pan. Use a spoon to flatten and smooth it out. This is how I want you to do it, using a rolling pin. The spatula helps the dough from the surface, so don't peel it up with your hands. Then use a fork to create art and to seal the pie crust. This reminds me of clay dough. If it breaks apart, don't panic. Simply form it together. We're adding 4 holes in the middle to allow extra heat to flow through and for heat to escape. Next, we are repeating the same process for our squash pie. Even though the squash pie came out really good, I decided here to roll out the top crust first before I pour the squash in. When I made the squash filling, I was like, this filling is so thin and watery-ish. But when I baked it and let it cool, it was very good. So we have both crusts ready. Let's pour our butternut squash filling in. Then we're going to use a fork to create art and to seal the pie crust. I didn't put any holes in the center, as you can see, because not much heat needs to escape. The butternut squash is already a softish, filling. We will bake both pies for 30 minutes on 365 degrees. Ten more minutes remaining, looking good so far. I didn't add an extra cooling rack, so I used a cloth to prevent putting on the countertop as is. They're out of the oven and they are still bubbling. Look at that. Everything is perfect, guys. Wait until you try it. I waited until it cooled before I cut it, but I was cooking other things as well. So just make sure this is the first thing that you make so it can cool properly and set. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Virtual cooking classes coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video.